A single father was pushed into the pool. People laughed. Then a female billionaire walked in, and everyone froze. What happens when a single cruel moment can change a person's entire life? Sometimes justice doesn't come from where we expect, but from someone we never imagined. Matthew Brooks bent down to wipe the last streaks of water off the polished marble floor of the Haven Bay Hotel pool area. His worn sneakers made small squeaking sounds across the luxurious space, blending with the music and laughter from the party nearby. At 38, Matthew had worked as a janitor at this five-star hotel for nearly 3 years. To most guests, he was invisible, noticed only when something needed cleaning, or when someone needed a target for their frustration. The San Diego sunset was still harsh, even though the clock was nearing 7 in the evening. The air was thick with heat, heavy, as if something was about to happen. Matthew wiped the sweat from his forehead, trying to stay focused on the job. Just 1 more hour till the end of his shift. 1 more hour, and he could go home to Chloe. Chloe, his 10-year-old daughter. The child was the only reason he stayed strong every single day. That morning, before school, Chloe had hugged his neck tightly, her small voice barely above a whisper. "Daddy, I need $47 for the science field trip next week. My friends are all going, but if you don't have the money yet, I can stay home." She tried to sound fine, but Matthew could hear the disappointment hidden in her tone. He nodded and promised to try, even though he knew every single dollar in their house was already counted. Rent, electricity, food. Ever since Sarah, his wife, passed away from cancer 3 years ago, Matthew had been both father and mother. He had given up his job as a construction engineer to stay with his daughter through those grieving months. When the last of their savings ran dry, he took any job he could find that allowed him to work shifts, just so he'd still have time to take Chloe to school. The evening janitor position at Haven Bay was the most reasonable option. Working from 2 in the afternoon until 10 at night meant he could take Chloe to school in the morning, come home to cook lunch, then head to work. In the evenings, their Chinese neighbor, Mrs. Camilla, helped watch Chloe until he returned. Matthew wasn't one to complain. He stood about 5'9", his shoulders slightly hunched from years of bending over to clean. Brown hair flecked with gray framed his temples, and the once bright blue eyes now carried a layer of quiet fatigue. He had learned how to be invisible, head down, silent, avoid eye contact. It was the safest way to survive in this world, a world where the wealthy came to indulge, and people like him came to serve them. But tonight, that invisibility was about to shatter, in the cruelest way possible. And somewhere, in the shadows, someone was watching. Someone who would turn Matthew's life in a completely different direction. The infinity pool of Haven Bay Hotel was the jewel of La Jolla, overlooking the Pacific Ocean, where waves crashed against the cliffs below. The sunset poured golden honey over the water, while the poolside lights flickered on, reflecting sparkles across wine glasses and jewelry. Tonight, it belonged to Madison Hill, daughter of real estate tycoon Charles Hill. She was throwing her 25th birthday party, gathering more than 30 guests, all heirs of fortune. Laughter, music, and clinking glasses rippled across the water. Madison was tall and slender, her golden hair curled in soft waves, her sun-kissed skin the perfect mark of someone raised under seaside luxury. The Versace dress she wore tonight cost more than Matthew's entire year's salary. But what made her dangerous wasn't her money. It was the way she looked at people, cold, disdainful, as if those who served her weren't human beings, but mere props in her perfect scene. Meanwhile, Matthew just kept his head down, mopping the floor, unaware that he was about to become the center of that glittering party. In less than a minute, the laughter would turn and aim straight at him. If you've ever seen someone humiliated simply because they were poorer, don't look away from the screen. The story you're about to hear will remind you that compassion still exists, even in the most luxurious places. And if you love true, emotional, and unexpected stories like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. What do you think will happen when a joke goes too far? Matthew pushed the cleaning cart toward the pool area, just hoping to finish quickly and avoid all eyes. But as soon as he stepped in, a sharp female voice stopped him. "Hey, janitor, don't come in here. We're having a private party." Madison Hill stood a few meters away, one hand on her hip, looking at Matthew as if he were nothing but an obstacle. Matthew stopped and replied quietly, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I just need to clean up the tables over there. I'll try not to disturb you." "Not disturb us?" Madison laughed, turning to her group of friends. "Did you hear that? He thinks that filthy uniform of his isn't disturbing anyone." The group burst into laughter. A girl in a designer bikini chimed in, "Come on, Maddie. Maybe let him stay. If someone spills something, he can clean it up right away." Madison thought for a second, then waved her hand. "Fine. But stand over there in the corner and don't stare at us. Got it?" Matthew nodded, swallowing the lump rising in his throat. He quietly stepped back to the farthest corner and began wiping the already cleared tables. In a quiet corner of the rooftop, there was a woman the group didn't bother to notice. Veronica Lancaster, 45, CEO of Lancaster Global Investments, one of the largest investment firms on the West Coast. Veronica wasn't like the usual billionaires of La Jolla. No flashy jewelry, no showy gowns. Tonight, she wore a simple white linen dress, her short brown hair tied neatly, a modest Timex watch on her wrist. She had stopped by Haven Bay alone after a long day, just planning to sit quietly, watch the sunset, and leave. But Madison's party had erupted in noise, and Veronica decided to stay and observe. Something in the way Madison and her friends treated the staff caught her attention. She had seen plenty of arrogance in her world, but this raw cruelty still unsettled her. When Matthew entered, Veronica noticed immediately. Not because of who he was, but because of how he tried to shrink himself, lowering his head to become invisible. She recognized it at once. This was a man surviving each day with fragile dignity. Veronica sipped her wine, continuing to watch. Matthew was cleaning a table when Madison called out, "Hey, janitor, come here for a sec." He put down his cloth, walked over, and kept a polite distance. "Yes, ma'am. What do you need?" Madison pointed to a dry spot beside her chair. "Someone spilled water here. Wipe it." Matthew looked down. The surface was bone dry. But he knew arguing was pointless. He knelt down and pretended to wipe it clean. "So," Madison drew out her voice, pretending to be curious, "how long have you been doing this job?" Matthew looked up, unsure if the question was genuine. "Almost 2.5 years, ma'am." 2.5 years? Madison raised a brow. "And you never wanted to do something else? You know, like a proper job?" The words hit like a punch to the gut. Matthew stood, trying to keep his voice calm. "This is honest work, ma'am. I support my child with it." "Oh, you have a kid." Madison clapped her hands as if she'd discovered something amusing. "Did you hear that, everyone? He's got a kid. So, will your kid be a janitor too, or do you have bigger ambitions for them?" Heat rose to Matthew's face. He clenched the towel tightly, forcing restraint. "My daughter's in 5th grade. She's very smart and hard-working. She'll have a good future." "Oh, I'm sure she will," Madison nodded, feigning seriousness, though her eyes glinted with mockery. "With such a model father, she'll learn plenty about humility." Her friends giggled. Matthew's ears burned, but he knew he had no right to be angry. He just needed to finish and go home. From where she sat, Veronica saw it all. The deliberate humiliation, the way the man's hands trembled slightly. Yet he stayed composed. The way he set aside pride for his child's sake. Veronica thought of her father. He had been a welder at the San Diego Naval Base. No matter how greasy his clothes got, every night he would hug his daughter and say, "My little girl won't have to suffer like I did." He worked double, triple, even quadruple shifts when needed. He paid for school, for hospital bills, for college tuition. And when he suddenly passed away at 58, his body exhausted from decades of labor, Veronica swore to live a life that would make him proud. She built her company not just to earn money, but to prove that success could coexist with compassion. Her employees earned high wages, received full health coverage, and had family leave time. Looking at Matthew now, Veronica saw her father's reflection, and she knew she couldn't stay silent. But she chose to wait, to observe, to see where this would lead. Matthew had just finished cleaning and was about to return to his cart when Madison's voice rang out again. "Wait, you're not done." He turned, still polite. "What else do you need, ma'am?" Madison stood and stepped closer. In heels, she was a few inches taller. She scanned him from head to toe and shook her head. "Aren't you ashamed? Having to kneel and scrub floors for people younger and more successful than you?" Matthew swallowed hard, silent. Madison's tone turned sweet, but venomous. "I mean, did you ever have a dream? Or did you always know this was as far as you'd go?" "Madison, stop," one of the girls in the group said quietly, uneasy. "You're going too far." "Too far?" Madison snapped. "I'm just asking. He's not a child. He can answer." She turned back to Matthew with a smile. "Well, tell me. What did you dream of being?" Matthew looked straight into her eyes. For the first time that night, he didn't lower his head. His voice was soft but steady. "I used to be a civil engineer. I designed bridges. But when my wife passed away, I quit to care for my daughter. And I don't regret it. Because she matters more than anything." Silence. Even those who had been laughing moments before went quiet. Madison narrowed her eyes. She hated that answer, hated that Matthew had made her look cruel. She needed to reclaim her power. "How touching," she sneered. "But I'm not interested in your sob story. I pay for good service, not for tragedy. Now get back to work." Matthew nodded and turned away. And right then, an idea, the worst idea of her life, flashed across Madison's mind. Have you ever faced someone who looked down on you just because of your job or background? Share your story in the comments. Maybe your words will give courage to someone who needs it. Madison walked back toward her friends, a strange smirk curling at the corner of her lips. She leaned in close to whisper something to her boyfriend, Tyler, and a few others. They giggled, nodding like conspirators sharing a private joke. On the other side, Matthew was collecting empty glasses. A vague unease crept into his chest, the kind that told him something was wrong, though he couldn't name it. From her vantage point, Veronica could read their body language clearly. Years of experience in the corporate world made her instinctively recognize it. Madison was about to do something ugly. She set down her wine glass, leaning slightly forward, ready to step in if needed. "Hey, janitor!" Madison called out sweetly. "Come here a sec. I want to ask you something." Matthew put down his cloth and walked over carefully, doing his duty as always. Madison stood about 2 meters from the pool's edge, her friends forming a loose semicircle, casual yet deliberate. "You know," Madison said with a friendly smile, "maybe I've misjudged you. You seem responsible. Being a single dad can't be easy." The sudden change of tone caught Matthew off guard. He nodded politely. "Thank you for saying that, ma'am." "I mean it." Madison stepped half a pace closer. "And it's so hot tonight. You must be thirsty, huh? Maybe you'd like to cool off a little?" Something flickered in her eyes, something Matthew didn't have time to understand. Madison tilted her chin slightly in signal. Tyler, tall, broad-shouldered. A former college football player stepped up behind Matthew. "Hey, man," he said in a falsely friendly tone. "You look like you could use a bit of fresh air." And then everything happened in an instant. Tyler shoved Matthew hard on the shoulder. Caught off guard, he stumbled, his shoe catching the edge of the marble. He reached out instinctively, grasping for anything, but found only air. In that fleeting second before he fell, Matthew thought of Chloe. She was probably at home doing homework, waiting for her dad to come back. If this cost him his job, then his body hit the water. The icy shock stole his breath. The soaked uniform clung heavily, dragging him down, his shoes turning into anchors. He kicked hard, lungs burning, fighting to surface. When his head finally broke above the water, the first thing he heard was laughter. Laughter echoing across the rooftop. Madison doubled over, laughing uncontrollably. "Oh my God, did you see his face?" Tyler clapped and whooped. "Best party ever!" Phones lit up. Some filmed, others snapped pictures. Some laughed openly. A few looked uneasy, but said nothing. In the pool, Matthew swam toward the edge, struggling to grip the slippery tile. His soaked uniform clung to his skin, his limbs heavy and tangled. "Since you're down there, might as well clean the bottom too," someone shouted. The laughter roared again. Something inside Matthew shattered. Not bone, but pride. Dignity. That fragile hope that he was still seen as human. He looked up at the mocking faces. The glowing phones pointed at him. He knew this moment could go viral. Another meme, another stupid janitor for the world to laugh at. Tears mixed with pool water. He couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. By then, Veronica Lancaster had seen enough. She rose from her seat, slow, deliberate. Standing 5'8", she carried the quiet power of someone used to authority, and who knew when to use it. She walked straight toward the pool, each step calm, precise. Wherever she passed, the laughter began to fade. People sensed something different. Not a curious onlooker, but a woman about to change everything. "That's enough." Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise like glass. Silence fell. Veronica stood at the pool's edge, looking down at Matthew. Then she knelt and reached out her hand. "Take my hand." Matthew's vision blurred. Before him stood a woman, stern but compassionate. He hesitated for a second, then reached up. Veronica pulled hard. She was stronger than she looked. Matthew came up, collapsing onto the marble, coughing violently. Veronica removed her linen jacket, an $800 piece, and draped it over his trembling shoulders. "Are you hurt anywhere?" she asked, scanning him quickly. Matthew shook his head, still unable to believe someone truly cared. Veronica rose, turning toward the crowd. Her voice shifted, from gentle to ice-cold. "What I just witnessed," Veronica said clearly, "was assault. A man doing his job was deliberately pushed into the water, then publicly humiliated while defenseless." Madison forced a shaky laugh. "Oh, come on. Who are you to get so serious? It was just a joke. Everyone's having fun. Everyone. Veronica's eyes swept across them. Is he having fun? Or is it only the bullies who are laughing? Some guests stepped back, realizing the night had gone too far. Tyler moved forward, shielding Madison. Lady, you don't get it. This is a private party. You have no right. Right? Veronica cut him off sharply. Let's talk about rights. What gives you the right to shove a working man into a pool? What gives you the right to humiliate a father trying to earn a living? She stepped closer. Though shorter than Tyler, she didn't flinch. Do you think money gives you permission to treat people like trash? That status allows you to mock another person's dignity? Madison snapped, her voice trembling now. Who are you to lecture us? Do you even know who my father is? Veronica turned her gaze on her, a cold smile forming. I do. Charles Hill. And I'm sure he'll be very proud to hear how his daughter behaved tonight. Madison's face drained of color. You know my father? More than that, Veronica said slowly, each word deliberate. My firm owns 30% of your father's company's shares, and I'm currently deciding whether that partnership is worth continuing, given his daughter's conduct. Utter silence. Madison stared at the woman before her, as if truly seeing her for the first time. A delayed realization flickered across her face. You're Veronica Lancaster, she replied crisply, handing Madison a business card. CEO of Lancaster Global Investments. And, as of last week, the new owner of Haven Bay Hotel. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Tyler recoiled as if struck. Madison's hand trembled, gripping the card. A few guests quickly backed away, eager to dissociate themselves. Veronica ignored them. She turned to Matthew, still shivering in the oversized jacket. What's your name? She asked gently. Matthew, ma'am. Matthew Brooks. Matthew, I owe you an apology, Veronica said. No one deserves to be treated this way. No one. Then, facing the crowd again, her tone hardened. Everyone who participated in or encouraged this cruelty is banned permanently from this hotel, effective immediately. Security will record names and footage. But, Madison tried to protest. There is no but, Veronica cut her off. Actions have consequences, Ms. Hill. And tonight, you'll learn that lesson. As if on cue, 3 security guards appeared. They had been alerted earlier, waiting for the owner's signal. Escort this group out, Veronica ordered, and make sure they never return. Watching security advance, Madison finally understood how serious it was. She turned to Veronica, her voice pleading. Ms. Lancaster, please. I didn't think it through. My father's company still has a contract with you. If you tell him— I will, Veronica said coolly. I'll tell him exactly what happened, and he can decide what to do with you. She looked at Tyler and the others. And as for the rest of you, pray that Matthew doesn't press criminal charges. Because what you did was assault, and I'll testify. As Madison's group was escorted away, some crying, others stammering excuses, Veronica turned back to Matthew. Matthew, she said softly, we need to get you somewhere warm and dry. Are you in pain? Matthew shook his head, though his body still trembled, not just from cold, but from shock. Why did you help me? He asked hoarsely. You don't even know me. Veronica crouched down to meet his eyes, her expression filled with quiet compassion. My father was a welder, she said slowly. He worked 3 shifts a day so I could go to school. I remember the way people looked at him, as if manual labor wasn't worthy of respect. She paused, voice softening with emotion. I swore to him that when I had power, I'd never let anyone be treated the way he was. That's why I helped you, Matthew. Because you deserve respect. Because you're human." Tears streamed down Matthew's face. Every ounce of humiliation, fear, and worthlessness poured out. Veronica let him cry, saying nothing, resting a gentle hand on his shoulder. When he finally steadied, she helped him to his feet. "Let's get inside," she said. "I'll have the doctor check you over. Then we'll talk." "But my job," Matthew stammered. "You're not fired," Veronica assured him. "In fact, I have a proposal for you. But first, let's make sure you're all right." If this story touched your heart, hit like to support us. What do you think? What proposal might Veronica have for Matthew? 30 minutes later, Matthew sat in the general manager's office at the hotel, wearing dry clothes that the staff had just brought. The hotel's doctor had examined him. No serious injuries, just a few bruises and psychological shock. Veronica sat opposite, placing a cup of hot tea in front of Matthew. She had called the lawyer and the HR director. They were now handling the legal procedures. "Matthew," Veronica began, "first, I want you to understand. What happened tonight is unacceptable. Not just morally, but legally." Matthew nodded, still not fully believing what was happening. "You have the right to prosecute Madison Hill, Tyler Smith, and the others involved for assault and disturbing the peace," she continued. "My lawyer will assist you entirely free of charge if you decide to proceed." Matthew looked down at his hands. Part of him wanted them to pay, but the other part, the father in him, just wanted to forget and move on. I don't know yet," he said honestly. "I just want a job. My daughter needs the money." Veronica nodded, her eyes understanding. "I understand, and that's why I have a proposal for you." She leaned forward slightly, her tone serious. "My company, Lancaster Global, is looking for an operations director for the San Diego branch. This position oversees our office buildings, supervising maintenance, renovations, working with construction contractors." Matthew looked at her, unsure he'd heard correctly. "You have a degree in civil engineering, right?" Veronica asked. "Yes, but I've been out of the field for 3 years." "Knowledge doesn't disappear," Veronica smiled. "And what I need isn't just skill. I need someone with integrity, diligence, and respect for everyone, from executives to janitors, equally." She paused to let the words sink in. "The starting salary is $95,000 a year, full health insurance for you and your daughter, 20 days of paid leave, and a scholarship program for employees' children." The ground seemed to tilt beneath Matthew's feet. That figure. Nearly triple his current pay. With that, he could— "Why?" he whispered. "Why are you doing this for me?" Veronica was silent for a moment, looking out the window where night had fully settled over San Diego. "I told you about my father," she said, her voice softening. "But that wasn't the whole story." She turned back, meeting Matthew's eyes. "When I was 15, my father had an accident at the plant. A scaffold collapsed. He was badly injured, a broken spine, no longer able to do heavy labor." Matthew held his breath, listening. "We poured our entire savings into hospital bills. My mother worked 3 jobs. And my father fell into depression because he felt useless. I considered dropping out of school to work." She faltered, a glimmer of moisture at the corner of her eye. Then a man appeared. He was the plant's chief engineer. He came to our house and told my father he needed a safety records manager. An office job. No physical labor required. He created that position for my father. Veronica's voice trembled slightly. I later learned that for the first 6 months he paid my father's salary out of his own pocket. He saved my family. She wiped away a tear, then looked straight at Matthew. When he passed away, when I was 30, I'd already achieved some success. I went to the funeral and promised, even if he couldn't hear it, that I would pass on that kindness. I would find people who deserved it and give them a chance. She smiled, warm and steady. Matthew, you're not taking this job out of pity. You're taking it because you deserve it. You have expertise, experience, and most importantly, character. What I saw tonight wasn't weakness, but strength. The strength to keep your dignity under humiliation. The strength to put your child above your pride. Matthew sat in silence, letting every word sink in. His mind reeled. Is this real? I've been out of the profession for 3 years. Can I do it? Then he thought of Chloe, of the science field trip, of the times she said, "It's okay," when her friends had things she didn't. He thought of Sarah. If she were still here, what would she say? Matthew, take it. Don't let fear block your path and your child's dreams. Matthew looked up. For the first time in 3 years, his chest filled not only with hope, but with possibility. I'll take it, he said, his voice trembling slightly. And I'll make you proud. I promise. Veronica smiled, a truly warm smile. I know you will, Matthew. Do you want to call your daughter? Veronica suggested. She must be worried because you're late. Matthew nodded and dialed Mrs. Camilla's number. Matthew! His neighbor's voice was full of concern. She's been asking for you non-stop. Is everything all right? Yes, I'm fine. May I speak to Chloe? A few seconds later, Chloe's voice came through. Daddy? Why are you late? I was so worried. Matthew's heart tightened. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I was held up a bit, but I have good news. What is it, Daddy? Matthew looked at Veronica, seeing her give a small, encouraging nod. He took a deep breath. Do you remember my old job, designing structures? I do. You said you loved it. I can do it again, Matthew said, his voice full of emotion. Which means you'll get to go on the field trip, and I won't have to work nights anymore. I'll be home with you more. There was a beat of silence on the other end, then a gasp. Daddy! Are you serious? You're not teasing me? I'm serious. Things are going to change, for the better. Daddy! Chloe burst into tears. I love you so much. I love you too. I'm coming home soon. Have you had dinner? I have. Mrs. Camilla made tacos. Come home quick. Hanging up, Matthew couldn't hold back his tears. Veronica handed him a napkin. She sounds wonderful, she said gently. She's my everything, Matthew whispered. I know, Veronica nodded. And that's why I'm sure you'll succeed. Because you know what truly matters. At the same time, elsewhere in the city, Madison Hill was living the worst moment of her life. Charles Hill, her father, sat opposite her in the mansion's living room. His face was flushed red, the veins on his forehead standing out. Do you have any idea what you've just done? He roared. Veronica Lancaster just called me. She told me everything. And there's video. Madison shrank back, truly afraid for the first time. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't think. Didn't think? Charles slammed his hand on the table. That's exactly the problem. You never think. Do you think my money gives you the right to look down on others? He shot to his feet and paced the room. I built this company from nothing. I was working at 16. I know what it feels like to do jobs no one respects. And now, my daughter, the one who benefits from every privilege, behaves like a tyrant? Dad, I'll apologize. Too late, Charles said coldly. Lancaster is considering pulling their investment. $50 million, Madison. $50 million because you thought it was fun to humiliate a single father. He stared straight at his daughter. And that's not all. That man could press charges. You could go to jail, Madison. Do you understand? Madison burst into tears, but Charles did not soften. From now on, all credit cards are cut. All allowances stopped. You're going to work. A real job. I'll bring you into the company, but you start at the bottom. Minimum wage, and you will learn to respect other people. But Dad, no buts, he thundered. You ruined everything. Now you will fix it. Or don't call me your father. Meanwhile, the video of the incident had spread across social media. Not from Madison's phone, those clips had been deleted, but from the hotel's security cameras released publicly by Veronica. The hashtag Justice for Matthew quickly trended. Thousands were outraged at how Matthew had been treated. Many shared their own experiences in the service industry. A few notable comments. I used to be a server. This kind of thing happens more often than people think. Thank you, Veronica, for speaking up. No one deserves to be treated like this. Matthew is a hero for staying calm. Madison Hill should be prosecuted. This is assault, not a joke. Veronica released the footage not for revenge, but to send a message. Such behavior would not be tolerated. That power comes with responsibility. That manual labor deserves respect like any other work. Do you agree with how Veronica handled the entire incident? Share your thoughts in the comments. 3 months passed like a dream. Matthew stood in his office on the 15th floor of Lancaster Tower, gazing down at the glittering San Diego Bay, bathed in morning sunlight. The office wasn't large, but to him, it was an entire new world. On his desk lay renovation blueprints for an office building in the downtown area. He was in charge of overseeing the entire project, a major challenge, but also a chance to prove his abilities. The first few weeks hadn't been easy. He had to relearn many things, get familiar with new technologies, and understand how Lancaster Global operated. Veronica had arranged a mentor for him, a senior engineer named David Brown, who patiently guided him step by step. Most importantly, Matthew had rediscovered his old passion. The feeling of looking at a blueprint and seeing a building take shape in his mind. The satisfaction of solving a complex engineering problem. The pride of earning respect from the workers he led. But the biggest change came from home. Every morning, Matthew woke up at 6:30, not to rush to a night shift, but to cook breakfast for Chloe. Today, it was strawberry pancakes, her favorite. Daddy, can I have 3? Chloe's eyes sparkled. You can have 5, Matthew laughed. I made extra. While she ate, he sat across from her, his heart full. In 3 months, Chloe had changed. Not in appearance, though she'd grown a little taller, but in her eyes, the worry and uncertainty had been replaced by brightness and confidence. She laughed more, talked excitedly about school, and no longer fretted over money or late nights waiting for her dad. Daddy, Chloe said between bites, my teacher assigned a project about the person we admire most. Can I write about you? Matthew's throat tightened. Are you sure? You could write about a scientist. Or an athlete? No, Chloe shook her head. I'll write about you, because you're the strongest person I know. You never give up even when things are hard. Matthew stood and hugged her. I love you, sweetheart. Everything I do is for you. I know, she whispered. I love you too. Last weekend, the two of them had moved into a new apartment in Hillcrest, a safe neighborhood, close to good schools. It had 2 bedrooms, a balcony overlooking the park, and, what thrilled Chloe the most, A small swimming pool in the building. "Can we go swimming this evening, Daddy?" Chloe asked, as they were getting ready for work and school. Matthew hesitated. Since that night at Haven Bay, he hadn't gone near a pool. The memory was still vivid. The feeling of sinking, the mocking laughter, the helplessness. But when he saw the excitement in her eyes, he knew. He couldn't let fear control him. "All right," he smiled. "I'll come home early so we can go swimming." At the office, Matthew was reviewing plans when a knock came at the door. Veronica stepped in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I heard you're wrestling with the ground floor layout," she said, placing 1 cup in front of him. "Yes," Matthew nodded. "The client wants to maximize retail space, but without natural light the area will feel suffocating." Veronica examined the drawings and nodded. "I see. Have you considered adding a skylight?" They discussed for about 30 minutes. Veronica shared insights from past projects. Matthew listened carefully, taking notes, asking precise questions. What he valued most wasn't the salary or the nice office, but being treated as a respected colleague, not someone to be pitied. "To sum it up, Matthew," Veronica said as she stood, "you're doing exceptionally well. The whole team speaks highly of you. David says you're the fastest learner he's ever trained." Matthew's cheeks flushed. "I'm just doing my best." "I know," Veronica smiled. "That's why I'd like to invite you to join the company's leadership program, training for future managers. I think you're a great fit." Matthew froze. "But I've only been here 3 months." "And in those 3 months, you've proven your worth," Veronica said firmly. "Don't doubt yourself. You belong here. You deserve success." When she left, Matthew sat quietly, letting her words sink in. 3 months ago, he'd been invisible, shoved into a pool for someone's amusement. Today, he was being considered for leadership. Life truly had a way of turning around. One afternoon at lunch, Matthew spotted a familiar face. Frank, the bartender from Haven Bay. "Matthew!" Frank ran up, grinning. "You look like a new man. I heard about your new job. Congratulations." "Thanks, Frank. Are you still at Haven Bay?" "Not anymore," Frank shook his head. After that incident, Lancaster replaced the entire management team. She said anyone who let something like that happen didn't deserve to lead. Now they've hired people who actually care about the staff. "What about you?" "I got promoted to restaurant manager." Frank smiled. "Better pay, better hours. Lancaster really changed that place." He lowered his voice. "Have you heard about Madison Hill?" "No. What happened?" "She's working at her father's company, in customer support. Taking calls, handling complaints. Word is, he's making her learn empathy before giving her any other position." Matthew didn't feel satisfaction over Madison's fall. He only hoped she'd learned what she needed to. That evening, when father and daughter went down to the building's pool, Matthew realized something. He'd feared water ever since that horrific night. But now, with Chloe's laughter beside him, he stepped into the pool. The cool water wrapped around him. This time, there was no fear. Because this time, he stepped in by choice. "Daddy, are you happy?" Chloe swam toward him. Matthew looked at her. Those eyes just like Sarah's, that pure, trusting smile. He thought of the past 3 months, of Veronica and her kindness, of his new job and the chance to live his dream again, of nights no longer haunted by rent notices or medical bills, and he thought of the greatest lesson of all, that a person's worth isn't measured by their job or income, but by their character, their compassion, and how they treat others. "Yes," he said, pulling her close. "I'm happy. Happier than ever." 6 months after that fateful night, Lancaster Global held a special event, the launch of the Lancaster Opportunity Program, a scholarship and vocational training initiative for people working in the service industry who want to change careers. Matthew stood backstage, his heart pounding. Veronica had invited him to share his story before 200 guests, CEOs, philanthropists, and journalists. "Are you ready?" Veronica stepped over and asked softly. "No," Matthew admitted. "I'm not used to speaking in front of a crowd." "You don't need to be perfect," she smiled. "Just be honest. Tell your story. People need to hear it." His name was announced. Matthew walked onto the stage on unsteady legs. The lights were blinding, but he still recognized the faces below. In the front row, Chloe wore a new dress, beaming and waving. That was enough strength for him to begin. "Hello, everyone." Matthew's voice still trembled. "I'm Matthew Brooks. 6 months ago, I was a janitor." He paused to let the words settle. "I'm not ashamed of that. I did that job to support my daughter, Chloe, who's sitting right there in the front row." Heads turned. Many people smiled. But even if I wasn't ashamed, many people made me feel ashamed. They looked at me as if I were invisible. Worse, as if I weren't human. Matthew told the story, not to seek pity, but to illustrate one thing. That night, when I surfaced and heard the laughter, I felt like my entire self disappeared. The years of study, the dreams, the effort to be a good father. Suddenly, none of it mattered. Because, in their eyes, I was just the janitor guy. Then someone looked at me differently. He turned toward where Veronica stood by the wings. Veronica Lancaster didn't see a janitor. She saw a father, an engineer, a human being worthy of respect and opportunity. Matthew's voice tightened. She changed my life. More importantly, she taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Our value doesn't lie in what we do, but in who we are, in our character, our compassion, and how we treat others. Matthew looked straight out at the audience. Today, out there are millions of people like I once was. They do jobs that are undervalued: cleaning, deliveries, cashiering, serving tables. They work themselves to the bone, sometimes 2 or 3 shifts, just to support their families. Among them, as I was, many have skills, education, and the potential to do more. But they're stuck because of circumstances, because of a lack of opportunities, because no one is willing to see them. He drew a breath, his voice firmer. The Lancaster Opportunity Program was created to change that, to find people who deserve a second chance, a third chance, even a 10th, to give them the tools to build a better life. But one program alone won't be enough. It needs all of us. Every person in this room has the power to change a life by seeing potential instead of just a job title. Matthew looked toward Chloe, the little girl quietly wiping away tears. Today, I'm not standing here only as a man who was helped. I'm standing here as a father who can tell his daughter, "Sweetheart, I got through it, and you will overcome every challenge too." My message is this: don't let anyone make you small. Your worth does not depend on their judgment. With just one opportunity, one person who believes in you, you can change the world. He finished. The entire hall rose in applause. Many eyes were misty. Chloe ran up and hugged her father tightly. After the ceremony, while Matthew was speaking with guests, a young woman approached. She was tall, in a neat suit, and somehow familiar. "Mr. Brooks," she said, her voice shaking. I'm Madison Hill." Matthew froze. In front of him was a very different Madison from 6 months ago. Thinner, no elaborate makeup, hair tied back. Most of all, her eyes, no longer arrogant, but full of shame and remorse. "I know I have no right to ask for a conversation," she said, choked with emotion. "I asked Veronica for permission to come, because I need to apologize." She took a deep breath. "I'm sorry for the cruelty, for the lack of empathy, for treating you as if you weren't human. There's no excuse." Tears streamed down her face. "These 6 months have been the most painful lesson of my life. My father made me work from the bottom up. I've felt what it's like to be treated unfairly, to be looked down upon. I thought about you every day." Madison took out a check. "This is $5,000, what I've saved. I want to donate it to the Lancaster Opportunity Program in your name. And I promise, from now on, I'll live by the values you showed that night." Matthew looked at her. Part of him still hurt, but another part, the part that had learned compassion from Veronica, saw in front of him a young person genuinely trying to change. "Madison," he said gently, "I don't need your money. If you truly want to make amends, do this. Treat everyone with respect, no matter who they are or what they do. That's what really makes a difference." Madison nodded, sobbing. "I promise. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Thank you for giving me the chance to learn." Madison walked away. Veronica stepped up beside Matthew. "You did very well," she said. "Not just today, but throughout these 6 months. You've proven that kindness isn't weakness. It's strength." Matthew smiled. "I learned that from you." Exactly 1 year from the night at Haven Bay, Matthew stood on the rooftop of the new Lancaster Tower, a building he had helped design and oversee. The biggest project of his life was complete. Chloe stood beside him, holding his hand. She was taller, more confident, and constantly talking about her dream of becoming an architect. "Daddy, are you proud of this home?" she asked. "Yes," Matthew nodded. "But I'm prouder of you." Veronica stepped out, carrying 2 glasses of orange juice and a bottle of champagne. "Let's raise a glass," she smiled. "Not just for the building, but for the journey." Glasses clinked softly. Looking out over San Diego Bay, Matthew remembered everything that had changed. A year ago, he was invisible, treated like garbage. Now he was a project director, a father who could give his child what she deserved. More importantly, a man who had reclaimed his dignity and hope. But he did not forget. He didn't forget the feeling of sinking to the bottom, the laughter of ridicule, and the moment when someone truly saw him and chose to change everything. That night at home, Matthew sat by Chloe's bed, as always. She had just finished a chapter, and her eyelids were drooping. "Daddy," Chloe whispered, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Do you still think about the night you were pushed into the pool?" Matthew went quiet for a beat. He wanted to shield her from it, but Chloe was old enough to understand a part of it. "Yes," he answered honestly. "Do you hate the people who did that?" He thought for a moment, then said, "No. I used to be angry and hurt, but now I feel compassion." "Compassion?" Chloe blinked. Cruel people are often people who are hurting inside. They haven't been taught compassion. They think power makes them important." He looked into her eyes. "Do you know what makes someone truly important? Not money, not fame. It's how they treat others, especially those who can't repay them." Chloe nodded, thinking it over. "So, no matter who you become or what you do, never forget. From presidents to janitors, everyone deserves the same respect. That's how to be truly great." Chloe hugged her dad. "I promise, I'll always be kind to everyone." "I know you will." Matthew kissed her forehead. Because you have the kindest heart I know. 2 years after the fateful night, the Lancaster Opportunity Program had helped more than 200 people change careers. Those once looked down upon were now engineers, project managers, financial specialists, and many other roles. Matthew was promoted to Deputy Director of Operations. Beyond managing projects, he mentored program participants, shared his story, and reminded them, never give up. As for Madison Hill, after 2 years of working from the bottom up, she became coordinator of her father's company's volunteer programs. She spent time working with organizations supporting low-income workers. She often said, the night at Haven Bay was the worst, but also the most important of her life, because it taught her empathy. Veronica Lancaster continued expanding the program to many cities. She received numerous awards for social responsibility, but she always said the greatest reward was lives transformed. Chloe, by then 12, wrote an essay about her father and won first prize nationwide. She didn't just tell how he overcame hardship. She also wrote about the lesson she learned. A person's value isn't in what they have, but in what they give. One autumn afternoon, Matthew returned to the Haven Bay Hotel pool area, but this time in a very different capacity, to inspect a new renovation project his company was undertaking. He stood in the exact spot where he had been pushed. Looking at the still water, he felt no fear or shame, only memory, like a rung on the ladder of his journey. "Daddy, are you okay?" Chloe, who had asked to come along, looked up. "I'm okay," he smiled. "I'm just remembering." "Remembering the good or the bad?" "Both," he replied. "Remembering the bad, so I know how far I've come. Remembering the good, so I can be grateful to those who helped me." He knelt to meet her eyes. "You know, sometimes the most painful moments are what shape us. They teach us who we want to become and help us appreciate what's good." "So are you glad it happened?" Matthew thought for a long moment, then said, "I'm not glad it happened. I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. But I'm grateful it led me here, to this job, to Veronica, and to the chance to help others." He stood and took her hand, and more importantly, it taught me, and taught you, that in hard times we always have a choice, to become bitter or to become kinder and stronger. "I choose the second," Chloe said firmly. "So do I." They left the pool area. Matthew glanced back one last time. The setting sun cast gold across the water. The place that once marked his greatest humiliation had become a symbol of renewal, of hope, of choosing kindness over indifference. In that quiet moment, Matthew understood his life, with all its sorrow and joy, had meaning. Not just because he overcame, but because now he could lead others to do the same. Matthew Brooks's story reminds us of a simple yet powerful truth. Everyone deserves respect, no matter what job they do. The janitor in your office may once have been a doctor in their homeland. The server might be pursuing a college degree. The taxi driver might once have been a professor. We never know the full story of someone's life just from their current job. And that's why we must treat everyone with kindness and respect. Because sometimes one act of kindness can change an entire life. Because sometimes the person you look down on today will be the one who shines tomorrow. And most importantly, do the right thing. Not for gain, but because we are all human. If this story touched you, please press like to spread this message of compassion and respect. Share the story with someone you think needs to hear it today. Comment with your own story. Maybe you were a Matthew, or maybe you met a Veronica in your life. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Take action. Today, find someone in the service industry, a delivery worker, a cashier, a janitor, and say, thank you. Look them in the eye so they know they are seen and valued. Because the world doesn't change only through grand gestures, but through small acts of kindness, one person at a time. Sometimes, extraordinary change begins with an utterly simple act of kindness. And sometimes, all a person needs is someone to believe in them. Be that person. Be someone's Veronica. Because each of us has the power to change a life. The only question is, will we use that power? This story is inspired by countless workers around the world, people who labor tirelessly every day, often forgotten, yet keep society running. To every single parent striving with all their might for their children, this is for you. And to the real-life Veronica Lancasters, those who choose to use power to lift others up, not trample them. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us to the end, and see you in the next video.